everyone. Thanks for tuning in. This is a very special project we're working on. I'm Brandon.
I'm Tyler.
And we are talking about 20 years of Game of the Year, and we're starting with 1998.
Welcome to Gamepad Pass. We may want to bring this up a little. I didn't realize how far away it was. Sure. So what we're going to do, we're not ranking these like this is the Game of the Year, this is the second Game of the Year. We're just doing this on a tier list, as you can see in front of you. We're ranking them according to must play, like the absolute greatest of all time classics. Below that, which is just one step down, fans of the genre. One step down from there, fans of the series. And then one step down from there, skippable. It's okay if you don't play it. Even still, every game we're talking about...
Skippable doesn't mean it's negative, but It's the lowest tier we have.
Yeah, I mean, every game we're talking about today and in this series is excellent. So this is just the lowest category.
We've chosen 10 games from every year for 20 years, starting with 1998. I put them in alphabetical order. We can just change that up as we go, but if you want, I'll just pick one and we'll just start discussing it and categorizing it on the tier maker.
As a brief caveat, we have not discussed where these games go, so we're figuring that out in front of your eyes.
Yep. So you want to start with...
Let's do it.
Let's start with 1998. BanjoKazooie. Funny enough, we were playing this earlier today.
Check out our series.
BanjoKazooie, off the top, I want to tell you, I want to put this in must play. However, if I'm going to take a step back and realistically assess BanjoKazooie, it's not going to go there. For me, at least, I think that BanjoKazooie is a great platformer. Controversially, I think it's better than Super Mario 64 in a lot of areas. I know you're not as experienced with BanjoKazooie as I am, but I think Mario 64 does some things better than it. I think BanjoKazooie does some things better than Mario 64. I'm going to put it in fans of the genre because I think there's some people who might not like cartoony kiddie platformer type games, and it's mainly the biggest thing about this, the biggest drawback I think for most people is going to be collectibles. Some people just don't have it in them to collect every tiny little thing. For completionists, this is a completionist's dream. Some people might not like that. But I think it's great. I want to put it in must play, but if I take a step back, I'm going to put it in fans of the genre because it's one of the best 3D platformers ever created.
I think fans of the genre is probably right. And just based on... Watch our series, please. We're playing through it right now. But based on... I can't give my personal experience with the game, but I can kind of talk about the way that it has been received. And it has been received as a very, very good game, but it does have a lot of detractors, and it's primarily the collectathon stuff. So anyway, we don't have to go any further than that. We will officially put it.
I think we can agree that it both goes there, right?
Yeah, I think that's the best spot for it.
Okay, so second up, we've got Crash 3, Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped.
I will say from the outset, I liked Crash Bandicoot a lot as a kid. And I didn't. There was probably a 17-year gap from when I played Crash Bandicoot as a kid and then when I played the Insane Trilogy. And I realized as an adult, I don't like these games anymore. So I'm gonna let you take this.
Okay. I'll say I'm very familiar with the Crash Bandicoot series. My favorite one is Crash Team Racing, which is funny because it's not like any of the other ones. But I think Crash 3 is the best of that trilogy for sure.
Okay.
It's a lot easier than the other ones. But at this point, in time with Crash, I mean, it was 1998. You've already got 3D platformers like BanjoKazooie,
right?
And Mario 64 and all that.
Spyro
stuff.
Came out this year.
Spyro also, which we'll be talking about later. I think that Crash's time was a little bit up at this point. I think we could put it in fans of the genre, but I think more realistically, for the time, I think it might go better in fans of the series. Yeah. Because people may have the mass. When I say people, like the mass mainstream gamer would just have expected more at this point. Right. Which Crash 3 is kind of like it was good for what it was, but it was just more Crash Bandicoot. I think people were wanting these open world games. I mean, we were playing BanjoKazooie earlier, and we were flying wherever we wanted, no load screens until we entered a world.
And that's the wrinkle I wanted to add, which is that Crash Bandicoot is a 3D platformer. It is in a 3D perspective, but it is so different from other 3D platformers like Banjo, like Spyro, like Mario. It's such a different thing because of the forced perspective I don't think you can say everyone who loves Banjo and everyone who loves Mario, I don't think they're necessarily going to find a home with Crash because it's such a different thing.
Yeah, I don't think Crash 3 was too late. I think the one after that, Wrath of Cortex, which is on PS2, that is totally skippable. But I think for now, I think we can agree to put that in fans of the series.
I think that's perfect.
I think so.
100% with you.
Next, we got Fallout 2.
Oh, boy.
Fallout 2 I don't have a lot of experience with this. I have more experience with Fallout 3, unfortunately. I was not a big PC gamer as a kid, and I haven't replayed Fallout 2 as an adult. I played it like one time. It's got that isometric Diablo-style gameplay.
Yeah.
It's more of like your strategic-based gameplay. And all I can say is that if you like that style of game, this is probably the best one for you. Story-wise and aesthetically-wise, it's post-apocalyptic. If that's not your bag, I'm sure you can find some other isometric strategy kind of games. But gameplay-wise, mechanics-wise, this is like one of the best ones there is.
Yeah.
That's all I can really say.
So, yeah, Fallout 2, full disclosure, I've actually never played Fallout 2 at all. I have played other isometric RPGs, ones that we'll talk about later in this series. So I know what to expect there. I think the most important thing for me with Fallout 2 is what the game did for the industry. It's one of the greatest Western RPGs ever made, and it's one of the greatest isometric RPGs ever made. I told you I think it's in the top 3 with a couple other ones that we'll talk about eventually as greatest isometric RPGs ever made. And on that fact alone, how influential it was, and everything that it did for the Western RPGs, computer RPGs, I think it deserves to be on the fans of the genre category. And the only reason I wouldn't put it in must play is because isometric RPGs are such a specific genre.
They're not for everyone.
I don't know that any isometric RPG is a must play because they are so specific. Because
it's not my favorite style. There's a reason I don't play those kind of games.
Right.
It's not that it's bad. It's just not my. It's not what I prefer.
It demands a very specific type of gamer. And so, as great as Fallout 2 is, and will go down as one of the greatest games in computer history, maybe in video games history, I still don't know that it reaches that same kind of audience that a Mario or a Zelda or a Grand Theft Auto does.
I agree. I think that's where it fits. Next, we have Grim Fandango.
Yeah.
So this is a point-and-click adventure game. At this point in time, 1998, point-and-clicks were kind of on their way out. I feel like point and clicks were never my bag, even though I had quite a bit of them as a kid. I had like this Lego point and click.
Oh, really?
Lego Adventure Island. I love that game.
Was it Sierra?
May have been. I don't know. Grim Fandango, not my favorite. This is the only one, and please forgive me. This is the only one I think I can put in skippable.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm gonna disagree with you 100%. So Grim Fandango is actually, it was the dying cough of a genre, which point-and-click adventure games have since kind of come back around. I like adventure games. I'm not as big a fan of point-and-click adventure games as like a subgenre of the larger adventure game genre. But I think Grim Fandango is, if it's not the best point-and-click ever, it's in the top 3 or 4.
Up there. I mean, it wasn't Double Fine at the time, was it?
It was LucasArts.
LucasArts, okay.
LucasArts.
Tim Schafer was involved.
Yes,
right. So
he was the writer, and I think Grim Fandango, next to Psychonauts, has the best writing that he's ever done.
It's really great writing.
It's hysterical. I played it when they did the remaster a couple of years ago.
It was free on PS4 for a while.
Oh, nice. But I played it on PS4 because it just came out in 2016. The remaster did, and I was blown away at how funny it was. I had never really played a game that had that sort of humor, I guess. And so it doesn't really belong in fans of the series because there is no series.
Yeah, right. So I'm gonna say it either goes in genre or skippable. For me personally, if I had to pick one of all these 10, this would be the one I'd say skippable. That's just out of my personal preference.
Yeah.
But fans of the genre, for sure, totally understandable.
Yeah. Okay, so I think it does belong in fans of the genre because I think if you are a fan of point-and-click adventure and you haven't played Grim Fandango, then you're sleeping.
Yeah. It's up there, but like, was that Full Throttle?
Full Throttle. It's up there with Secret of Monkey Island.
Yeah. Like that kind of humorous, funny, happy-go-lucky point-and-click. Not something as serious as like Myst.
No, yeah.
Or what's Dark Seed? That's a really weird one.
Yeah, no, I don't know that one.
That's a weird point-and-click.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's really funny, though.
All right, let's do the next one.
The next one is Half-Life 1. I have trouble finding where this needs to go. I'm going to say must play because I think it is one of the best FPSs I've ever played. I mean, Half-Life 2, of course, is better in every way possible.
Right.
But Half-Life 1 at the time was absolutely incredible.
That's okay. So
I played this on PC. My brother and I played it on PC.
Yeah. That's interesting because I was thinking it was fans of the series.
Because of retrospect?
In retrospect. And I know it's tough. It's tough to put your brain in 1998 and just judge the game on what it was then.
Right.
But the reason that, specifically because of Half-Life 2, and how I think Half-Life 2 is an absolute must-play. It is one of the most clear must-play games that's ever been out there.
If you're going back now, I can see fans of the series.
And I think
back
that's
then. Like if this was 1998, yeah, you must play it.
Right. I think this is for the audience of people who are watching this right now in 2018 or 2019 or whenever you're watching this. I think this is a for fans of FPS games. I would say go play this. For sure. You know, but I wouldn't tell my little brother.
Hey man, this is the best ever. Or like someone who doesn't really play a lot of video games. You can't tell them go play this game. It's amazing.
Right. But you could kind of say that about Half-Life 2.
I don't know, man. I think Half-Life 2 stands up to this day.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Like even I feel like Half-Life 2 is better than some FPSs that come out today.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
But I can't say the same about Half-Life 1.
Yes, and I think for that reason, it's a fan of the series game, maybe fan of the genre.
Man, that's kind of.
But I don't know that I would.
I wish we could put it in both.
I know. I don't know that I would tell a COD fan or like a fan of Battlefront.
That's a good point. Because someone who's expecting like a Call of Duty style game and play Half-Life are going to be totally thrown off.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of puzzles and different level design. It's not go here, shoot this guy, whatever. It's more of like you might do some backtracking.
There's some exploration.
You might need to go, conserve your ammo for certain things.
It should be said. It should also be noted. Half-Life was the first game to implement a real deep, interesting story into a game, because unto this point, it was Quake, it was Doom, it was Wolfenstein, which are shoot-em-ups, competitive shoot-em-ups in various ways, arena shooters.
This is a very narrative-heavy game.
So,
I guess, because whenever we talk about these, we're not just talking about how they stand up back then, we're talking about how they stand up now as well. I think fans of the series really is only the place it can fit.
Okay.
All that said.
Yeah. So let's do it there. Hey, Half-Life is freaking amazing.
I love Half-Life. If it was up to me, I'd put this in must play. But I'm doing this both objectively and subjectively as much as possible. I think if anyone out there has played Titanfall 2, go back and play Half-Life. If you haven't played Half-Life, go back and play it, please. Half-Life's great.
It's incredible.
Metal Gear Solid. This is going to be an interesting one.
Yes, it is.
Because I love Metal Gear Solid. I love that series. It's not my favorite. And a lot of times, whenever you look up top 10 PS1 games of all time, Metal Gear Solid is usually number one on that list, or pretty dang close to it.
Don't tell me what category you want until you finish. Let's both finish our arguments, and then we'll both tell where we think it belongs. How do you like that?
Sure.
Okay.
It's good. I mean, it's a good stealth game. It's a good story game. It controls well. Metal Gear is the first one of all of them is the only one that you can detract from as far as like wonky controls and stuff is concerned, because it was the first one, or the first Metal Gear Solid. Cool characters, voice acting, big deal. The voice acting wasn't bad. I mean, it was okay. Some of it was bad.
It was hokey, but that was kind of the intent.
There was really cool that Kojima flavor shine through, and a bunch of stuff like having to move your controller to the other slot to fight Psycho Mantis, having to look on the instruction manual to find the codec code to call the chick, all that stuff. Having to smoke a cigarette to see the lasers, all that stuff was really cool. You didn't see that in any games. And you still kind of don't see that in a lot of games. Unless it's a Kojima game. There's a lot of thought and attention to detail in Metal Gear Solid 1. As far as where to put it,
don't tell me yet. I want to give my argument first.
I just want to say I'm a little stuck on it, but while you talk, I'm going to think about where to put it, because there's two spots I think it can go.
Okay. So we haven't encountered a game like this yet since we started doing this tier list. And what I mean by that is, I think mechanically and gameplay wise, I don't think it holds up.
No, absolutely not.
And
it was great.
That doesn't factor in with any of these other games. All these other games, and granted,
they still feel really good.
Right. If you go back and play Half-Life, it's going to look kind of dingy, grungy.
Even Crash 3 we were talking about earlier.
It will still feel the way that you expect. Even Crash. If you've played Insane Trilogy, you go back and play Crash Warped, it still feels just like that. Metal Gear Solid, for people who've only played 5, you know?
Oh no, you're in trouble.
It doesn't hold up. But everything else you said, the really campy voice acting, which is great, the ridiculous spy espionage story, how innovative it was with like the cigarette stuff and the distracting of the guards, and just what it did for stealth genre was fantastic. And I think that puts it up on those lists of greatest PS1 games of all time. But for this list, I'm stuck on it too. I don't like.
Yeah,
it's tough.
I can't say fan of the genre because it really kind
Dude.
of doesn't have a genre. It's
What if I came to you?
tactical stealth espionage?
What if I came to you and said, "Hey, Brandon, I really love Splinter Cell. Should I go play Metal Gear Solid?"
I don't know, man.
Right.
I don't know if I could tell you that.
I don't know that fans of the genre fits.
I mean, I guess this would fit in the same genre as something like Hitman. You know?
Yeah.
It's stealth. It's kind of espionage a little bit. It's the same basic don't get caught by the bad guys.
Right.
Try to be stealthy as possible. It's definitely not skippable. Or it could be for some people. But for me, it's not.
If you're leaning towards series, I think I'm with you.
That's what I'm leaning toward. I want to say must play because I think it is a must play. It's either must play or fans of the series for me. I can't decide.
I'll say this: as far as
because we have to come to an agreement before we
do.
We can't just put it in two spots.
Right.
And there's only one place it can go.
Right. As far as the must play goes, I'll say this: I haven't played this since I was a kid, and I don't expect to.
I mean,
do you intend to go back to
personally? Like I said earlier, Metal Gear Solid is not my favorite series.
Right.
I like it a lot. I really do. But whenever it came to what I played back in the day, I played other games a lot more than I played Metal Gear. I never even owned Metal Gear as a kid. I had demo discs. I had rented it.
And honestly, dude, some of the things that we laud it for, some of the things that we hold it up for, will work against it for other people.
I believe my cousin had this game.
The weird sense of humor that works for people like us isn't going to work for a lot of people.
And this is our list, so at the end of the day...
That's true. You're absolutely right. But if we're talking about must play is a category...
If I had to pick either must play or series, I'm going to say fans of the series.
Okay, yes, I completely agree.
A lot of times whenever I see, and this is just me, this is my personal taste, when I see people say Metal Gear Solid 1 is the best PS1 game ever, I somewhat disagree sometimes.
Yeah.
So let's save ourselves the trouble and say fans of the series.
Okay.
If you're cool with it, I'm cool with it.
I think that's where it goes.
Okay, cool. Next on the list is Pokemon Blue and Red.
Poker Man.
Our only Game Boy game.
Yeah.
Our only portable game on this list. Pokemon.
Our only JRPG.
Believe it or not, I was not super big into Pokemon because, I had a Game Boy, but I didn't play a lot of Game Boy games because a lot of times when I was a kid, if I was playing video games, I was at home.
Yeah.
We did go on like car rides and I'd be playing games, but I didn't get very many games as a kid for my Game Boy. But I do absolutely understand the significance of Pokemon Blue and Red. I think they're really great. Let's talk about the categories as far as fans of the genre and fans of the series. It's kind of a strange genre, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it is an RPG. I would mostly consider this a JRPG, turn-based RPG.
Right.
But it's a lot different with the whole capturing the Pokemon and gotta catch them all. You know.
Right. It created that genre.
It has this really cool rock paper scissors style combat system where it's like you have a grass Pokemon, I'm using my fire Pokemon, and I think the story was always funny because like no matter what Pokemon you picked, your rival always picked the one that counters yours, and it's just a pain in the neck the whole time. Story wise, it's Pokemon. You're catching Pokemon, you're getting the gym badges, you go to the end. But Pokemon Red and Blue, I don't really think there was really much except for you just wanted to be the best in all the land, pretty much.
Yeah,
these are my personal favorites because I don't like a whole lot of the future Pokemon games because I like the original 150.
Right.
And that's the only ones I really mesh with. I don't play a lot of Pokemon Sword and Shield's coming out pretty soon. Am I stoked for it? Yes. Am I going to buy it? Yes. I'm probably just going to use all the old Pokemon.
Right.
That's just me. That's my flavor.
So let me say this about Pokemon Red. Pokemon Red was the game that made me interested in JRPGs. Pokemon Red was one of the only games I owned on the Game Boy, and I played it obsessively. Pokemon Red was At one point in time, it was maybe my favorite game in the world. I absolutely adore the original 151. I love Pokemon Red so much, which is why it pains me to say that I think it's skippable.
Skippable?
And here's
Man,
why.
that's rough.
With the caveat, just play Ruby Red.
Yeah.
I really don't think that people who haven't played Pokemon are going to go to this and enjoy their time very much.
I think this is one of those situations where it was more for the time that it made our list,
Yes.
our 10, than it was for replayability.
I'll go so far as to say this. Out of the 10 that we have here, save maybe one, I probably have more nostalgia and fondness for this game than anything else here. I still think that if you haven't played Pokemon Red, let's go down the category. If you haven't played any of these, must play. If you've never played a Pokemon game, don't play Pokemon Red first.
Yeah, you should probably. Yeah.
If you're a fan of the genre but you haven't played Pokemon Red, play Ruby Red. If you're a fan of the series and you haven't played Pokemon Red, play Ruby Red.
They did remake the
Ruby Red.
Ruby Red and is it Sapphire Blue?
Yeah. And then
because they combined Ruby and Red, right?
Well,
I can't remember. I don't know.
No, Ruby Red is just a remake.
Okay, because there is Pokemon Ruby and there's Pokemon Sapphire.
Oh.
And there's Pokemon Emerald.
Maybe I'm misremembering the name of that game.
Are you talking about Omega Sapphire and or whatever?
Let me see.
I don't know. We'll have to fact check it.
I'm probably misremembering the name of the game. Pokemon Red remake. I can't remember what it was called.
I have no idea. Let's find out.
Was it Fire Red? It's Fire Red.
So Fire Red.
Yeah, for the Game Boy Advance. I'm sorry, Ruby. I'm tripping. Yeah, Fire Red.
Yeah, because I think there's
Ruby is its own game, and then there's Omega. What'd you say?
Yeah, well, I think it's called like Omega Red. I can't remember. It was a remake for Sapphire and Emerald. And
Right.
Ruby.
It was a remake of the second generation.
Yeah. Well, that's third because second's Silver and Gold.
They did remake those as well, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
They've remade almost all of them. So yeah, just go play the remake. But
just go play Fire Red. That's the most important point in all of this. If you've never played Pokemon Red but you have an interest, I would put like Fire Red in the must play category, but because we're on the original Game Boy. We don't. There's no color. The sound chip is as old as you could possibly
especially if
get.
we're talking about playing it on original hardware, for sure. But out of all these 10, I could see you putting skippable just because hardware-wise, it's no backlit screen.
Right.
I mean, if we're, I guess we really had to talk about.
And that's the
games.
expectation, right?
We had to talk about hardware in some senses.
You're not when you recommended BanjoKazooie. Were you recommending the remaster?
No, I would recommend that game, no matter what format.
Right.
So.
I think Pokemon. It may be my favorite game on this list besides one other, and I really think it's skippable because I think Fire Red was so good in the remake.
If you want to put it there, I won't argue.
Where did you want it?
I was gonna say genre because of its JRPG roots, and it's a good introductory to for kids or for younger audiences to get into JRPGs. But that's really the only reason why.
Right.
But if you want to put it skippable, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I adore that game, but I don't know that someone who doesn't have the history with that specific title will appreciate it. That sounds really gatekeepy. That's not what I mean. I just mean it's hard to get it.
I do love Pokemon games though.
Yeah.
I just want to make that abundantly clear.
Resident Evil 2?
Resident Evil 2.
So I feel like the way I felt about Pokemon Red may be where you're at with RE2. Because they just remade it.
Yeah, but there are certain things. Remember, we want to talk about it for its time as well.
Right.
And on the PS1, it's still playable. Tank controls suck.
Yeah.
And no matter what, I love Resident Evil 2. I love Resident Evil 3. I love Resident Evil 1. Tank controls suck.
Yeah.
They've always sucked. I hate them. But I do love Resident Evil 2. I love the music. I love the setting. I love the campy voice acting. I want to say I want to put it in must play, of course. That's where I want to go with it. But if I say fan as a genre, horror genre for sure, one of the best.
Let me ask you this: for someone, I'm completely with you. For someone who's only played, let's say someone who's played Outlast, someone who's played Five Nights at Freddy's, would you recommend Resident Evil 2 original to them?
Well, this is a little bit more action-based. Comparing it to something like Five Nights at Freddy's, that has like really no action to it.
Right.
I mean, it does have gameplay mechanics. But Outlast is a little bit more action oriented. I'd recommend it because it's kind of got that jump scare. It has kind of like some body horror, some gore. Does it stand the test of time? I think Resident Evil 2 is probably the best Resident Evil on PS1 for sure. I don't think I would talk about Resident Evil 3 or Resident Evil 1 in the same light.
Right.
It easily is for fans of the series. Easily.
Yeah.
Fans of genre, I think it could fit there too. I'm stuck on those two. I wouldn't say must play just because
Tank controls.
It might, the tank controls, that's the number one detractor from this game.
Yeah,
easily.
that is going to segment a whole section of the audience.
But I feel like some people don't like horror games, and I feel like some people...
That's a good point, too.
I feel like some people wouldn't...
So would you say this is kind of in a similar situation as Fallout, where horror, it immediately shoves some people off?
Yeah, I think so.
I think I'm with you. So let me give out what I think about Resident Evil 2. I'm with you. I think it's one of the greatest horror games of all time, if not number one. I think I had it on 64. Do you have it on?
I had it on PS1.
PS1. I had it on 64. I played it when I was,
or my cousin
knee high to a flea. That's the one where my grandmother pointed at the case and she was like,
and
she pointed at the word evil and shook her head.
If we're talking, I'm not sure if the 64 one came out in tandem with the PS1 version, but the PS1 version is superior to the 64 version because it's missing pieces.
Yeah. But I think the most important thing for me is that if you're just a fan of the horror video game genre, you may have played The Evil Within 2. You may have played the Resident Evil 4. You may have played some of these other games.
Also, back then, what was the alternative horror game to play? As well?
Oh, yeah. Back then,
there really wasn't a whole lot.
Yeah, Parasite Eve, Silent Hill.
Alien.
Yeah. I think this belongs in fans of the series. I don't know that...
I'm stuck. I mean, I feel like I could go in either or.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like I don't disagree, but I also don't know. I just really don't know. I could throw it in either and be happy.
Right. I'm just trying to think about people who like horror genre video games, but haven't played RE2, and do they bounce off within the first few hours? I think that's a very high possibility because of how difficult it is to control.
Oh man, you can die.
It expects a ton from you.
The beginning of that game will rip you to shreds if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, that game expects so much from you, and I'm not.
But if you're a fan of the series,
yes,
you will understand
exactly.
That. So let's put it there.
Okay,
let's just throw it in there. We're talking
again. We're still talking about some of the greatest games ever.
Right. None of this means that any of these are bad.
Agree.
I love all these games, minus a few. Not that I don't. They're just not for me. Let's talk about Spyro. Spyro the Dragon.
I'll take this one. Or I'll start.
You go ahead.
Okay, so I grew up with Spyro in the same way that you grew up with Banjo. I love Spyro a ton. It was the game. You remember we had this conversation a while back. There was that really good video game historian video. I can't remember if it was the game that invented the video game design element of frustum culling. I think this was that game that invented frustum culling, which meant that they could design levels to be bigger than other video games could because it wasn't having to load in everything behind Spyro. It was only loading in the things in front of him.
That's correct. I've seen that.
Which was complete innovation. Every video game that's made today does this, and it was the first game to do it, which meant, I'm not just saying that to say...
It's industry important.
Industry important, which meant that you could go... If you're looking in these levels the same way you talked about with Banjo earlier, if you saw something, you could go to it. I mean, there was stuff in the... Obviously, there was background art. There was art in the distance. But there was no loading screen. If I saw a platform out in the distance, I just ran to it. I flew there. I ran there.
I think from a technical standpoint, comparing it to BanjoKazooie, I think all that's preloaded because it's cartridge-based. But because that's CD and progressively scanned or whatever, I think it's... a PlayStation or disc-based format solution.
The soundtrack still holds up. It sounds fantastic. If you go back, if you play the one, what was the remake?
Reignited. I was watching my wife play it earlier this morning.
Yeah, you can switch back to the old soundtrack. It still sounds fantastic.
Feel the same. It just looks better as well. And the remastered soundtrack is the same music. It's just remastered.
And I think any fan of 3D platformers should play this.
before we even
Without
started
exception.
before we even started talking, I wanted to put it in fans of the genre. So
I think
we're on the
that's
same
where it
page.
goes.
I think
Yeah.
we're on the same page. Like you said, I think it fits spot on. It's a great platformer.
Yeah.
Especially the first one. I'm not sure if I can speak so much on the second and third one in the same light as the first one, because a lot of times with video games and trilogies, you have that charm, that level of charm that comes in with the first game, and then you kind of already know what to expect. So it's not a whole lot of new. It's just some improvements.
Right.
But I think
We'll talk about the sequels next time.
Possibly. Possibly. We don't know that
We don't.
did
Yeah, I
yet,
guess we
but-
don't know. But there's some stuff that one of the sequels did that I think we'll include it on one of these.
Okay,
lists.
for sure. Last one, Ocarina of Time. You know where to put it.
It's a must-play.
Go ahead and
Goodness
put it.
gracious.
Go ahead and put it there. It's a must-play game.
It is.
Is it one of the? Dude, a lot of times you go on the internet, you type in best games of all time.
Ocarina of Time is like.
Ocarina of Time's always number one.
Yeah, 80% of the time that's going to be the one there.
I think it's debatable that it could be there, but I'm not gonna argue with it.
Right.
I love Ocarina of Time. Is it my favorite Zelda game?
No.
It's not.
It's not
But
mine either.
From a technical standpoint, for what it did back then, I can play it right now. I can play
Absolutely.
it right now. Put the 64 controller in my hand right now. I'll
And
play
did it not define for you what video games could be? Because it did for me. I remember when I played that game as a little kid. My expectation after leaving that game was, okay, every game should be this big. Every game should be this immersive. Every game should have this much mythology and
Story.
character and story. And they didn't.
The puzzles are great.
It took so long for video games to live up to what this game
and
did.
also, this is very important for the time. This was another one of those genres that made the leap from 2D to 3D.
Right.
And Nintendo just nailed it.
Yeah.
With same thing with Mario, Super Mario World to Mario 64. This was Link to the Past to Zelda. Taking that, you have a new access to work with, and creating puzzles, and creating
Excuse me?
puzzles, in that having that new access to work with. That's rough. I mean, you get the hook shot on Link to the Past. You can hook shot across a river,
Yeah.
but you're looking down at it. You have a hook shot now. You can go
Anywhere.
in every direction. Z targeting was a great innovation, being able to lock
Oh,
on.
jeez.
I mean, did it pretty much invent lock on technology?
We still use that anytime if you play Dark Souls.
Dude, God of War.
God of War.
The newest God of War. Everything
It's
uses lock on.
everywhere.
I
It's
mean,
absolutely
I'm pretty
everywhere.
Sure, I mean, I could be wrong, but that's one of the games. If it's not the game that invented lock on, it's the one that modernized
That popularized it,
and made
yeah.
it a mainstay in almost every 3D game.
Yep.
And then music, Koji Kondo. I mean, come on, dude.
You're not gonna find I mean, I say obviously take this with a grain of salt. I'm being facetious. You're not gonna find a gamer out there that doesn't have some sort of affection or nostalgia for this game.
I own like 3 copies of this.
You have
game.
to play it.
I'm
Can
an idiot.
Can you get it on the Switch right now? No, but that's because Nintendo
Jeez.
is
Come on, Nintendo. Give
is
it to
just
us.
leaden with dickheads.
But dude, it's man, it's so good.
It is.
I can't say. If you give me something negative, say something bad about Ocarina of Time.
Oh boy. Honestly, you're gonna have to like start searching.
I got one bad thing I can say about
Okay.
Ocarina of Time. Everyone says the water temple, but it's not the water temple itself.
Right.
It's how you access the items.
Exactly.
And with the remake that was
Did they remedy that?
They remedied it
Yes.
in the 3DS remake.
Mhm.
Being able to access certain items that you need, and I think that was just a developer oversight when they made that temple. I think the design of that level is okay.
It's brilliant.
I
Honestly,
think it's the mechanics of the game that prohibits you from enjoying it the way it was originally intended to be.
And we don't need to go down a whole rabbit hole of talking about all the temples, but honestly, the water temple is genius. The way that it stretches vertically rather than horizontally, which is how
I
most
like
temples.
the water temple.
It's honestly an
I don't like the spirit temples. I like the
yeah.
water temple.
The spirit temple is a pain in the butt with the
don't
giant hand that falls down.
Hey, did you know you can hook shot onto the nipples of the big statue? You can do it.
Really?
Only in the original 64 version, you can.
That's awesome.
But anyway, or I think
But
it's
how
that
many
one.
times have you gone into to the Goron village or whatever and just sat there because that music is so damn good?
All the music's good. The
It's
Zora
incredible.
Domain. I used to go to the Zora Domain and just sit there.
It's so good, man.
When I was a kid, that's one of those games I would go to the area and play with my toys.
It's a must-play game.
It's a must-play, for sure.
It's God tier. Gamepad Pass.
Hey, thanks for watching. We're going to be doing more of these videos. We're talking about
20 years of Game of the Year.
20 years of Game of the Year. We're talking about 10 games from each year. Like, comment, subscribe. Hey, tell us, what do you think about all this? Where do you think the game should have went on the tier list? If you didn't like it, let us know. If you think that fits, let us know. Hey, thanks. See you later.